Cort Wrotnowski, coming to you from the world famous Parkway Diner in Stamford, Connecticut. This is Monday evening, 7 p.m. The year of our Lord, 2025. Now, there's so much going on, and I want to be able to structure this in a way that's useful to you, so that I think, well, that you can see what I think I see. In any event, let's just go through the calls to action. Come on, go to Yankee T News. Still a work in progress, but subscribe, subscribe, subscribe. So you go to the YouTube channel and subscribe. Is there a subscribe button on our website, Eric? Hey, Eric. Eric.
What?
Is there a subscribe button on our website?
No, but not for the YouTube channel.
Okay.
They have to go to the YouTube channel to subscribe.
But you can put the subscribe button in other places.
No, you can't.
Cannot?
No. You can't.
How weird. Okay, well, I stand corrected.
You have to be on the platform you're subscribing to.
I see.
And they have to have an account with that.
Okay, so then it's called, go to youtube.com/@YankeeTNews and look for our subscribe button and subscribe. Por favor. Now, tell Tong time. My question to you, Mr. Tong, is, do more nonsensical lawsuits help you sleep? This is what I'd like to know. You're setting a record as far as I can tell. Your concept of lawfare will become a case study in law school in the future for how to not do law. Just saying. Meantime, for Tina Peters in Colorado, we'll be talking a little bit about Colorado's Garden of Weeds. Meantime, excuse me, the theme here tonight is Connecticut, election integrity, and a gentleman named John Flynn. So, per what I wrote, okay, here's the thing. For people who vote in Connecticut, such as myself, on election day, or if you need to get an absentee ballot, things seem to proceed in a normal manner. However, below the surface, there are some very serious problems. And I lay it all at the feet of Stephanie Thomas, our highly incompetent Secretary of State. But before I get to that, well, here, I'll just read this off. So we have mismanagement, lack of training, resistance to change, cultural entrenchment and decay, a legal system that insists on putting its head in the sand, as well as obvious fraud that goes unpunished. There's a refusal to address highly suspicious issues, which then leads to my talking about John Flynn, because like him, love him, hate him, make fun of him, John Flynn has certainly made a lot of noise and drawn a lot of attention. So right now, the problem is we have this controversial figure who may have some problems, who is right now, as far as I'm concerned, Connecticut's #1 political prisoner. Now, I have to use prisoner lightly because he's being, shall we say, held pretty much against his will at a place called the Whiting Forensic Hospital, which is the state's only psychiatric hospital. Now, it's a little unclear how he got there in the first place. We've been trying to pull more information on that. But the bottom line is that he has developed a reputation for getting out there and getting in people's faces when it comes to political corruption. And as one person said it, even though he can act nuts, he seems to be right about 80% of the time. So while he's doing a great service, he's also his own worst enemy, which is basically the problem. Now, he has said things about our voting system, but the person I would really like to point to with respect to election integrity in Connecticut is Linda Sinkowitz in Fight Voter Fraud. So she's a co-founder of this remarkable organization, which has done a lot of work. So for the promo, we have the link, and it's on her website, by the way, fightvoterfraud.org. If you go to that site, you can find it. But the report is a thorough town-by-town analysis of the function of the registrars in each of those towns. And it's not pretty. It is not pretty. See, I just want to find the key phrase here that puts it all together. Okay, so a summary statement from the report was that there's 169 towns in the state, okay? Of the 169, only 29 towns fully complied with FOIA requests, while the Secretary of State's office failed to provide complete and accurate data. Now, I would add that in the case of the Secretary of State's office, complete and accurate data has been a long-running problem, and that is another discussion. Okay, so let me just read this little phrase here. The way the state has handled John Flynn is the same way they've handled the election system. Neglect designed to protect corruption. I like it so much I'm going to say it again. Neglect designed to protect corruption. And the worst example of that neglect is an organization called the SEEC, or the State's Election Enforcement Commission, which, by the way, as I say here, it's a relic of the Watergate era. That's how old the SEEC is. So they have created a structure that would arguably follow the basic maxim, follow the money. So that much is true. But after that, when there's wrongdoing, there have been so many examples where they've ignored it, they decry, they don't have enough people to help them out, they suffer from all sorts of shortcomings, and gee, that's the way life goes on. Okay, so yeah, so let's just leave that for now, and I'm going to move on to theme number 1. The Russia hoax is still blowing up, and let me just stop for a minute, ladies and gentlemen. Hold on. Burn bags? Burn bags? What are you talking about? Burn bags in a place where they're not supposed to be? In a room locked away where nobody's supposed to be? Okay, as one person suggested, the fact that we found the Durham Annex report in burn bags in a secret room, so said, I guess, by Kash Patel. All right, there's a story behind the story. That's right, there's a story behind the story. So allow me to use what I call the George Webb formula here, which is 40% fact and 60% conjecture. So the 40% of the fact was, as reported, these burn bags were found in this locked room somewhere deep in the bowels of the FBI headquarters. Okay, the conjecture. Here's my prediction as part of the conjecture. Some whistleblowers from the FBI have come forth, but we have not seen the best one yet. And I predict that person will be coming. Because whoever this whistleblower is, they would have been the ones responsible for putting the burn bags in that place in the first place. So the thing that's funny to me is, if it's a burn bag, aren't you supposed to burn the stuff in it? So what's it doing in some room somewhere not being burned up? All right, so it had to have been done by somebody who really understood the system and knew how to manipulate it. That's the essence of my conjecture. The next part, though, is whoever did it had to be in the innermost circle. That's where it gets interesting. So hopefully we're going to find out what the story is. All right, so I just want to rattle off a couple of other things. Okay, the talk is finally maybe we'll assign, it's a special prosecutor or somebody like a special prosecutor who's going to be assigned to your friend and mine, Jack Smith, who was hectoring then candidate Trump, month in and month out with these phony lawsuits built around Mar-a-Lago. Then that's Jack Smith. The next one we're waiting for, the next little one who has to be plucked, that would be Chris Wray, the former director of the FBI. I'm sure he knows a few things, yes. All right, so it's, we haven't heard much from Tulsi Gabbard. She was going to release some information, but that hasn't happened yet. So I would say stay tuned for that. Meantime, just because Epstein is still lurking around out there, he hasn't been quite at the top of the news. But because we've listened to what President Trump has said, all right? We've seen how there's a change in tone from February and March to then in June, and now he's back to talking like it's February or March. He's talking about how he wants to release the information. So, ladies and gentlemen, this idea of releasing information is really, it's like this. It's tied up with the other part that's been dropped here and there, okay? The 4,000 some transactions involving $1.1 billion associated with just one bank that Jeffrey Epstein worked with, okay? So all of that, okay, will somehow have to be wed, okay, to the, quote, names that will be released. But as President Trump says, he only wants the guilty parties to be named, and we must protect the innocents. Okay, okay, that's very different in tone from what he was saying a couple weeks ago, as in, you're not my supporters anymore. Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, let me talk now about China. Okay, the bad joke is I hear a gong. Boom. Great. So, this is an interesting article. See if I can find the diagram that I wanted to show you for this. It's a special study. We should study the shipping ports of the world and get to know them. But it says here, dozens of the world's most strategically important ports are up for grabs, potentially breaking China's shipping stranglehold. All right, so we know, but we've heard about the situation with Panama. You got two companies controlling each end of the Panama Canal. But there, okay. So the red dots show other port areas that are also considered strategically important. And some number of them are up for sale. So China, of course, now is caught in a bit of a bind, okay, because it's not just America, it's other countries that don't want China controlling those ports. All right, so there's that. Where was the other thing I just want to get to quickly? Okay, the other part here to talk about is it's been going on for some time, so it does seem odd, right? When you study these various issues and topics, you find they've been talking about it for years, but now all of a sudden an article pops up that makes a big deal out of it. All right, well, how about the, quote, dark shipments of, excuse me, from Iran to China for oil? 89%, I believe, 89% of oil from Iran goes to Red China. So what happens? China will take the oil on in Iran. Then there's a place somewhere around the Malacca Straits. I'll just show you. You show them the Straits of Malacca there. Just point to that. Thanks. Okay, so the Straits of Malacca, many islands, and so it's been tracked. They're photographed. They got satellite imagery. What the heck? Okay. So it shows these, so they turn their transponders off, they go dark, they pull into this area, and then these other ships, with their transponders also off, offload the oil from the first ship to the second ship, and off it goes to China. Like, we're not supposed to know about that? I don't know. Anyway, well, we do know about it, so you guys got a problem. So, so that the whole, there have been related things about oil. We'll get to it. Anyway, I just want to say that if we ever get around to, I'll just say it. If we ever get around to stopping the oil shipments from Iran to China, that will cause a world of hurt for China. Now, mind you, while it's 89% of the oil from Iran goes to China, in terms of China's consumption, Iranian oil is 15% of the total. So they would probably find other sources, but you can imagine that if you were to impinge 15% of China's daily oil supply, that's going to cause some problems. Meantime, India is still taking Russian oil. There have been contradictory reports about this, but I would say at this point, India is still taking Russian oil. And President Trump has made some threats to India about this. And as some people have said, now wait a second, why would you attack a really good ally like India, who's of strategic importance, in order to do something on behalf of Ukraine, which from some perspectives is not as strategic as India. We could have that discussion. Also in the news, you had Ukraine and Russia trading drone punches with each other. This seems to be more like a daily occurrence. It's almost not newsworthy. Then, as part of this word war that's going on between America and Russia, so you had, I'm trying to remember what the order was. First you had Lavrov, I believe, making vague references to the use of nuclear weapons, and then Trump responded by saying we're going to reposition some of our nuclear subs off the coast of Russia. And then the next response to that was Putin saying that hypersonic missiles are going to be deployed to Belarus. So this all takes on a very strange appearance as far as I'm concerned. It's like two guys, right? They're in the ring and they kind of go, all right, come on, all right, and no one ever throws a punch. They keep circling each other. They don't even make any false moves.
Makes for a very boring exhibition.
Yeah. At some point you want to call BS on what they're doing, you know. But the other thing to keep in mind is they both know they're kind of in the middle. They're close to something that could become very dangerous. Look, I think Putin knows as well as anybody else that they could get dragged into World War III just like the rest of us. And it's not in Russia's interest to be dragged into World War III than anybody else's. So, we're entering a phase of brinkmanship that's being played by both sides. But I think both have the good sense to not cross over a certain line. And, Trump made the point, I guess, the data on how many soldiers have been killed is kind of always in question, okay? But the latest on a Truth Social post was in round numbers since January, it's about 120,000 Russian soldiers that have died, which I find to be an astonishing number, okay? And that's just for this year. We're not even talking about what's happened in years prior. And, again, you look at this, I just can't think, I mean, we've talked about this before, I'm going to say it again. Low birth rate, terrible demographic projections, okay? An economy that is not as good as you think it is, all right? And I don't know if you remember the picture I showed you of the sex minister for Russia, the ugliest babe you could imagine. They need more children. They need to have a growing population, but they're moving the exact opposite direction. What are you guys doing? Anyway, and killing themselves off. I mean, killing each other off like this. They just think they can last longer than the Ukrainians. And, all right, and then in the meantime, you had Trump coming around to show a picture shaking hands with Zelensky, working out a new weapons deal. Anyway, so just to mention it here, I'm going to go for Konstantinivka. Konstantinivka, so that's a strategically important town in Ukraine where the Ukrainians are getting hit on three sides by the Russians. It's called Stay Tuned. We'll see how that assault turns out. Okay, while all this is going on, right? Well, all this crap is unfolding all around us. I'm going to call it the one small glimmer of hope. So there he is, Steve Witkoff, the trade representative, I believe, back to Moscow. Okay, back to Moscow. Going to see if we get people to sit down and talk with each other yet again. And yes, through all this, I forget, it's going to be soon, right? It's going to be soon when the deadline for the tariffs is imposed if they don't come to the peace table. So Witkoff going to Moscow is kind of like a last-ditch effort, I think, before the deadline is hit. We'll see how it goes. Meantime, all right, remember, I just started tonight talking about the sad state of Connecticut's election system. And by the way, I just want to throw in a little factoid, which I think might be true in other parts of the country too. The average age of a registrar in Connecticut is in their mid-70s. Let that sink in. The average age of a registrar in a town in Connecticut is in their mid-70s. That reflects all kinds of things. Towns don't care, don't have enough money, and they're not making the effort to make sure that their voter rolls are up to date and all those other good things. Which, that is one can of worms we can get to later. Meantime, there's been a report, of course. What a report. Okay, information is coming forth. It's been sitting there all this time. We're not doing anything about it. It's coming forth about the state of the election system in New York State. It's terrible, all right? I mean, all kinds of things have been talked about. And it gets complicated because you've got on the one hand the basics. When you talk about voter rolls and how many people's names are on there that shouldn't be there, right? But then, then over in the other corner, you have the discussion about the machines, right? And the problem, of course, is that this becomes a very complicated, confusing subject very quickly. So you don't know what to say about the machines, what to think. There's clearly a problem, and you have the states in question avoiding this. I'll give you one quick example. I'm not going to get to say that much about Tina Peters, but in this interview I watched today, she made the point that then as now, these machines, which are managed by Dominion and Smartmatic, have wireless devices in them. The state won't address it. They won't do anything about it. They won't go anywhere. She knows the wireless devices are there, yet they pretend like it's not an issue. It's just amazing. Okay, next hot issue that really should burn us all. How am I doing on time?
3 minutes.
All right, I think I can do 4 minutes. I think I can do this. Okay, the title I put was Phony Labor Statistics. Ditch the bitch. So it is a woman who is the former head of the Labor Statistics Office in the Department of Labor. And say what precipitated this was that she came out with these unusually low job data figures last Friday that caused the market to take a plunge, okay? Well, as soon as she took a plunge, the market took a plunge, Trump fired her ass. Good. And guess what? After she was fired, the market went up. There you go. Anyway, no, there's a backstory to be told. Hopefully somebody will do all the research on her. More than once, ladies and gentlemen, more than once, we have had I need a good word here. I'll stick with bitch, but just the dishonesty is overwhelming, okay? Now, why she did this under Biden, it's more to manipulate the economy, more than to help out presidents, as far as I'm concerned. So here's the thing. I'll put it to you this way. Twice now, we've had incidences where she had to come out and revise her estimates on job growth downward. Hello, Carola. Downward by 800,000 people. 800,000. That is not a small number, okay? What kind of stupidity is this? Or dishonesty, okay, that you're just tootling along month after month saying this is what we got in the way of job growth, and then suddenly just wash it all away. That was certainly the case in 2024, okay? Because when the downward revision came out in, I believe, August of last year, that wiped out all the phony gains that had been reported through the year up to that time. In other words, no job growth whatsoever. That was the reality as of August 2024, thanks to her. So you know what? Trump did the right thing. He ditched the bitch. Okay? Now, in the meantime, all right, Department of Justice eliminates DEI hiring regulations. This, too, is big. As the article said, now we will hire people on the basis of merit, okay, rather than the phony concepts built around the term equity. It's a good start, okay? And there's a point I'm going to make about this and the other things. I got to hurry up and finish this. The other big win for President Trump, and for America, by the way, union protections gone for federal employees, okay? So I have the link. Go take a look at it. And mention, we got the video, the interview with Tina Peters and the Alpha Warrior show. This was before she went to jail. She says, she reviews what she's done. And just, when you combine this with all the other stuff that's been going on with respect to the dishonesty around our electoral system or election system, It's just, yeah, it's a little tough for me to take. Anyway, so let me get to the next thing here. Food additive of the week. Here you go. You're gonna love it. You're gonna love it. There you go. You probably have heard this before. Okay, phthalates, okay? Right there, phthalates. Phthalates, just ignore the P there. The P is silent. All right, these are bud. You okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Was that because you had too many phthalates today?
The P is silent.
Yeah, no, it's very silent. So, and the first H too. So, the hot issue here is you may have heard the term endocrine disruptors, okay? Now, phthalates make up a very complex group. So if you look at those, the letter R there, that is, that means that you can put any number of different atoms or molecules in those positions and come up with a huge number of phthalate derivatives. This just to show you, so here's an example. This is some of them here, all right? And then you got more over here. And so let me just quickly rattle off a few things. So the last column says properties of concern for human health. And if you were talking about one, the abbreviation is DEP, under assessment for endocrine disrupting. Another one is for skin sensitizing. Another one is toxic to reproduction, endocrine disrupting. Another one toxic to reproduction. And there's at least an on and on they go. A lot of them are toxic to reproduction. Now here's the thing that's annoying about this, okay? We set a high standard for food safety based on the capacity for causing cancer, right? The Delaney Act, if anybody remembers, from 1958. That was the first act of Congress where we had to start doing some form of, quote, cancer testing on new compounds, all right? But here you're in this other category, toxic to reproduction. Well, to what degree? So here's the problem. These kinds of compounds can cause problems at different levels, right? And you can get contradictory results too, all right? So it's a little confusing, but I think the rule that we need to operate by here, ladies and gentlemen, is that whatever we can do to get this out of our system, both in terms of the food system and our own physical bodies, it needs to be done, all right? And the notion that you have something that's harmless, or they're having trouble demonstrating harm, when you see information like that, you have to stop and wonder, okay? All right, so just a couple other things I want to throw out here. In Utah, they're having the water wars. This is terrible. And you want to know one of the things that's probably going to be driving where they're going to take water away from the farmers and ranchers? Building out data centers for AI. Okay, there you go. And what's also cool is Android phones. There's a suggestion that Google's Android phones are made to be able to detect earthquakes. So in other words, that hasn't been confirmed, but there are supposedly, quote, special sensors. So special sensors would mean that they operate at an extremely low frequency. And the last thing I want to throw out here is that, you know, people have no problem trying to, quote, bribe the president, right? Okay, so first we have Chucky Schumer. He cannot go soon enough. Oh my goodness. So he's trying to bribe Trump with respect to the appointments that he's trying to get through the Senate. And so as the story goes, he was attempting to bribe President Trump. Well, how did that work out? Because if you remember, President Trump told Chucky to go to hell. Meantime, we have another situation which is sort of curious and troubling. So let's start with this. Here's the map. If you could help out with this again, Eric, please. Thank you. All right, so we're looking for Somaliland. You see Somaliland there? So Somaliland is a relatively new breakaway province, if you will, from from Somalia and from Ethiopia. So the problem has been that they're trying to get some love and respect in the real world. And well, guess what? They're having trouble. So they too are trying to bribe President Trump. Okay, we have a very nice port here. I forget what the name of the port is. Here it is, Berbera Port. And they have a few other assets, if they will. Bring America in, and you can set up your military bases here. And hopefully they'll do it in a way where America has the freedom to operate, because in the neighboring country of Djibouti, why are you laughing? You know, in some ways she's never really grown up, but that's another story. Okay, so Djibouti. We do have a base there, but the government of Djibouti restricts our ability to attack the Houthis from there. So Somaliland say, you can set up shop here and do whatever you want to the Houthis. I like that idea. Anyway, so that's the last of it. And hopefully, ladies and gentlemen, you'll get something out of this. Tell your friends, get them to watch later. And above all, subscribe. Thank you very much.